Crafting Around. Today I am going to show you how we made these blocks right here. The words we want to say for Thanksgiving is give thanks. What I did was I took a 2x4 and I wanted to have some blocks and I wanted to kind of scatter them a little bit, and so what I did was I figured out the size that I wanted. What I wanted was the two tall blocks that we're going to be working with today, which is going to be this one now too. The two tall ones are 7.5 inches high. The ones next to them are 6.5 inches high, and the two in the middle are 5.5 inches high. So the width is actually perfect. The height is what I wanted to adjust. The one on the top here is a 3x7. I'm going to show you how I came across to doing that. First of all, the blocks I cut to the size, decided what size I wanted them, cut them to the size that I wanted. The second thing I did was I went out and looked. I wanted to use some kind of a background. I didn't want to just stain these. I wanted to give it a little bit more of a color. So I went to Hobby Lobby, and these are the papers that the scrap paper that I chose. I actually got these on sale for 20 cents. So what I wanted is I wanted some kind of a blue, a green, and I wanted a red. You can use any colors that you want. You could go with the golds, you could go with the greens, you can go with the browns, the yellows for fall colors. You can even get the scrapbooking paper with the pumpkins on there. Totally your call. I wanted this to kind of go because this here is kind of what my house is like. So then what I did was, after I decided the heights and the widths that I have of the blocks, I made the templates. And the templates were so that I would know how much of the paper that I wanted. So I took a block and I measured it. I wanted to know like how far. I wanted to leave at least 1/2 inch on each side, bottom and top, is what I wanted to do right away so that you could see the stain of the block. I didn't want to cover it completely with the craft paper. So I made myself a template. I made one for each size blocks, which actually came to 4 because this one here is a little bit different. So I made a template for 4 blocks. And then these are what I came up with. Different heights for these. So then what I did was I printed it up. I took these several times. I took them and I put them on top of the board. I resized and then I resized again, and I printed until I had the size that I wanted. Then I got some heavier paper because I knew that I wanted to trace these on the scrapbooking paper and take them out. So I actually put them on heavier paper. Then my next step was cut the boards. Now I want to stain them. But what I want to do first is I want to take off some of the roughness because on a 2x4 the board is rough. So what I did was, again, I got a block and I got some sandpaper. I also have an emery board that I'm going to be using. So let's just sand. I don't want the sharp corners on here. What I want is I want like a rounded corner like what we have right here. Also, when you cut the wood, you have these here parts that kind of frill out a little bit. And as you can see, they kind of chunk out, but that's okay because that just makes this block really unusual. So I want to wear that down. I'm going to sand that down. I don't want, if my granddaughters go up there and pick it up, that they get a sliver from this. So we're going to round all that down. Sand down any spot that you can see that's going to be a hazard. And again, do your sides because your wear you're going to show on the sides. Anytime you distress something, distress it where you see some kind of a wear, where you see some kind of a, where you're going to hold it the most, where it would scratch the most. That's going to be your wear points. So take that. Sand your block down as good as you can. Make sure that it's somewhat cut straight. If not, you may have to go back and saw. What I usually do is take my hand and make sure that I don't have anything on there. Again, I love the smell of freshly cut wood. It smells so good. Don't worry if you have knots and stuff like this. For number one, if you want to use it to cover it up, you sure can. If not, I think it really looks cool. If you take a look at the back of this one here has a knot. This one here has a knot as well, but this one here will be covered up. So if you have any of the knots or any holes or something like this and you don't want to cover them up, maybe don't saw right there, maybe saw up a little further so that you do have something like this. It just gives a character, and character is what you're looking for. When you're doing something crafty, I always think you need to look for the character in it. Bring out the character in anything that you have. And you may even have 2x4s just laying around. This one just so happens to be laying around in our garage. And I did get to talk Lauren into letting me use it. And this too is a project where I sanded them all first, took a piece of sandpaper after them, got it to where I liked it. Once it was nice and smooth and I had the corners that I wanted, make sure that your front end, and make sure that your back is sanded the way you want it to. To me, that just finishes the project. I even sand the tops a little bit where they were cut, because like I said, you kind of want that smooth. You're not going to get it all the way smooth, but you're going to get it somewhat smooth. And if you don't have a saw at home that you can use, I'm sure you can probably go, if you buy the wood at your local hardware store, you might be able to talk them into letting you, you could talk them into having them saw it for you. And it's all preferences to what you're using. Again, go to a ventilated area while you're doing this. It should be safety first, and as you're doing this, you should probably wear some kind of a mask so you don't have all that dust, because you will have plenty of sandpaper dust. Okay, now I can start to see where there's some good wear. And don't worry, we're going to come along again with the sandpaper. This is just round one. Apparently a nail got put through that. And like I said, you're not going to be able to get it very smooth unless you take a lot of time to sand, which we're not going to do here. Take the wax paper, throw it away. And now I'm going to take a rag, wipe off part of the table here, and then be sure and wipe off your block really well. Once you think you've got it pretty well wiped off, now we are going to lay the sandpaper to the side, and we are going to take another piece of wax paper, and we've chosen the pecan wood stain. I did pick this up at our local hardware store. Our local hardware store is really nice. They've got a lot of stuff in their store, and if they can't find what you're looking for, if they don't have it in the store, they will search it out for you. And I'm putting disposable gloves back on because I do make a mess. And I don't want my hands all stained up. Okay. So with that being said, just a piece of rag, which I have right here that I used before. I'm going to take this and dab it in here. Get a pretty good chunk because with this here wood, this is going to soak up the stain pretty fast. About as fast as I get it on, that's as fast as it's going to soak it up. It's kind of strange because the different kinds of woods and stuff that you use and you stain, it's funny how it picks up certain sections and certain sections it doesn't with the wood grains. And again, if you find out when it dries that it's too light, go back over it again, restain it. Stain with going with the grain. Always stain going with the grain. Once you put the stain on, back over, wipe it off. You're going to have different colors in different spots. Like here you can see it got a little darker than up here, but that's all right. That's what I like about it. And again, ventilated area is the best to do this in. If you're going to do it in the winter time, have maybe a window open for a little while or something. I really like how that took portions of the grain. Okay, I'm going to do this side yet. Also do the sides right here. Now the tops and the bottoms, it doesn't matter how you get them, if you get, because it's raw wood, so it is really, really going to soak in the stain. There is no wiping off of the stain on that point, unless you really take your sandpaper and you're really sanding it. See, you're getting it on, just wipe it off on the sides here. And now you have your tops and your bottoms done here. Check it out, see if you missed any spots that you think need any. I'm going to give a little bit more, a little bit less. We are going to come along with the sandpaper again. Going to age this a little bit more. Can't just leave things alone. I have to, as you can see, this is darker than this right now, and that's because I came along with sandpaper and I actually aged that a little bit. What I'm going to do is we're going to take this now, let her dry, and we're going to work on our lettering. Now, what I did with the letters is you could go several different ways. You can get stickers and use the stickers. You can get the wood letters and use those. All kinds of stuff you could get that you could decide to use. What I chose to do was make it in Word because I wanted the size. I wanted to be able to size it myself. And I wanted it to fit, of course, on my templates that I have. So my best option was to go in and choose a font. Now, there are so many fonts out there, I didn't realize that it would take me probably 45 minutes until I finally chose the font that I wanted, which I finally did find. What I did then was I printed out the fonts on sheets of paper like this. What I did with that is I took my paper that I had cut out. Let's just cut one out. The T, I use this here. We're gonna cut it out of here, tracing it on, and then we'll cut it out. Okay, you see I traced it onto my scrapbooking paper. Cut this out. As good as what I can. This can be done on an inkjet printer. Any kind of a printer is fine. Doesn't matter. And if you don't have Microsoft Word at home, what you do have is you have Paintbrush that you could use. There are some other programs out there. If you have Photoshop or something like that, you can do that as well. Anywhere where it will allow you to choose a font.
Introducing our device installment program. Extra savings and extra flexibility. Call Valley today for all the details at 437-2615.
What I did then is I did the templates, and I decided then like the size. So of course, as you can see, the T is bigger, the H is a little bit smaller, the A and the N is smaller, but still using the same font. And then the K and the S. Now what I did with this is I made the S the same size as the T, because this is the same size block, the T and the S. Then what I did was use the H and the K. They are the same size. And then the A and the N is the same size. Now those are the same sizes because I've got 2 sizes of each block. Okay? So once I printed these out on the sheets of paper, I want to print them on my scrapbooking paper. If I would do this by hand, it would not turn out whatsoever because I don't do things by hand like that. I'm not that crafty. So what I did was I held it up and I looked through to see where my T was. Because you can see through it where it actually is going to end up, and I wanted it in the middle of my paper here. So what I did was I took it. I'm going to use just 2 small strips of double stick tape because I want it to come back off. So I'm using 2 small pieces. And I am going to put this across my T. Now I can see where it's going to be at and where I've kind of got it. I'm going to go like that, and I'm just going to stick it a little bit so that when I hold it up to the light, I can make sure that's where I want it. I'm actually going to move it over just a little bit more. I'm going to push it down harder. Now, you can't see the T on here, but I can see through it really good looking through the back. And I can see that I have it evened out. So I'm going to take just a little bit of tape, because when I put this back into my printer, it's going to go through my printer this way. So I don't want this to get caught on this little lip. So what I'm going to do is just take another small piece of paper, small piece of double stick tape, and I'm going to tape it down right there. Okay, now you can see that I've got the double stick tape here and on the lip. Now I'm going to put it back through, and when I put it in the printer, I'm going to have it print again. I don't care how much it prints over here. I want this printed here. If you want to at the same time, you can take the template for the H, which I have right here. You can cut out a piece of whatever paper that you're using there, and you can put that over the top of this, and you can put it through. Once you put it through the paper, it will print on here just like it did on these blocks right here. So instead of using stickers, I printed the template, and then I'm putting this over the top. Now, say that this is printed on the top, like it is on those right there. Here's the S. This is how it printed out like this, really dark. Okay, so I now can take this off. And be gentle when you're taking it off so that you don't tear, your paper. And then you can take the double stick tape off. Might tear a little bit of the paper, but as long as you don't tear it so that it's torn through. If you tear it through, just adds a little more character is all. And there we go. We now have it printed on. Now have it printed on our scrapbooking paper. Okay. So now that that project is done, we worked on that project until we've completed it. That project is done, so that means our block should be dry. So what we're going to do with the block now, I'm going to take the block, I'm going to put this messy stuff aside. We're going to go after the block with some more sandpaper. We're going to rough the edges down to make the edges look like this. So again, we're going to take our sandpaper. And this is completely discretionary. You can do this as much as you like or as little as you like. Once you do the sides like this, really all you can see is the sides. What I like to do is I like to go in just a little ways on the tops of each one of these. So I'll show you here. And have quite a bit of sandpaper handy, because what's going to happen is because you stained it, it's going to get kind of gummy on here. So in order to get the top to show, we're going to go on the top, not just the sides, but the top as well. What's nice about these sanding blocks is always you have to do is put them under water and wash them off. They're ready to reuse again once they're dry. And this is what your block is going to look like, just like this once you've sanded it. Take the time to sand it as much as you want to sand it. Sand the sides because you know that that's where stuff gets worn. So sand your sides, sand the edges. Every edge that you have, sand it until it gets to the point to where that's what you like. Once you like that, then we're going to start putting this on. And I'm going to use this block right here for that. Like I said, also know what side that you're going to be putting it on, because that's important as well. Pick a side when you start sanding. That way, if you want to sand a little bit more or a little bit less, you can do that as well. So pick a side. We're going to use this side right here. We're going to put this block to the side. We're all done sanding. But what we're going to do now, we're going to use Mod Podge. And with the Mod Podge, we are going to add the S to fill out the rest of the blocks. And again, with this project, it's kind of, it's do something, wait, do something, wait, do something, wait. But while you are waiting for these to dry, you can start making your letters and you can start cutting out your scrapbooking paper. Now again, you don't have to use scrapbooking paper if you don't want. You can use wood on wood. You can get the wood letters. You can get chalkboard letters. You can get, there are so many things that you could get. You can just take and use a template if you want and cut out the chalkboard and make it yourself. I mean, do the S on there yourself. Again, my freehand is not that well, so I have to use other options. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the block beside it because I wanted to match up with that. So I'm going to take the block that I used beside it. And I'm going to put that on here and see where I kind of match up with it. Don't want it too far down, don't need it too far up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these blocks over here, set them so I can kind of eyeball, because when we set them down, I want them to all kind of be about the same range. So I'll take this one as well. Look to see where they're at. Now remember, like I said, the T and the S are the same size. If you put those together, you can see they're the same size. So now, and it depends on what kind of font you want. That's why it's good to print it all out and take a look at it, because if it's kind of a different font than what you're not used to using, not used to looking at, what's going to end up happening then is one letter is going to look kind of out of place compared to the other ones, and it just sometimes does not work out well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, kind of step back, take a look at it, see what I think, see if it's kind of in line. Looks like that is where I want it. Looks good to me. I'm going to take my pencil and just make a couple marks with it. As you can see, the blocks don't have to be perfect. I actually found this one and it had a knot, a big knot on the side like this. Fell in love with it. Decided this will be one of them. So let's do this now. Take my pencil and mark where I'm going to put this. And again, the font that I chose is kind of a tilted one. It's not one that's supposed to be straight. A little on the Kitty Wonka side.
Pick your promo, sign up for high-speed internet, and get an iPad mini for only $60, plus get $60 in Valley Bucks. Or sign up for HD DVR from Valley Video and get $60 in Valley Bucks. Take advantage of these great promotions in honor of Valley being around for the last 60 years. Call 437-2615 today.
Valley Telecommunications, the home team advantage.
Okay, so I'm just going to mark it where I want it to go. A little mark on the top and a little mark on the bottom. So when I set this, I have an idea of where it needs to go. Okay, put these back together. And now we are going to take some Mod Podge. I'm going to take another brush, foam brush. It's always good to have lots of foam brushes on hand. I use those quite sparingly, or not sparingly, I use them quite a bit for a lot of things that I do. I have learned a hard lesson though with that is you can't use a sponge brush for everything. I have tried that and it doesn't always work. So again, we're going to put on some Mod Podge. And once you use Mod Podge, the thing I found out about it is you have to let it set for just a little bit. You can't You gotta let it get a little tacky before you use it. I'm just gonna go like this. And now I'll find my little mark that I made. Make sure that I have it. You don't have much time to play with this. Once it goes down, you've got just a short little while to decide if that's where you want it or not. Now, if your edges aren't quite, if your edges don't go down quite good, then take your brie or your brie, or your brie, I think is how it's pronounced, and get all the bubbles out. You can always lift it up and put some on the corners or on the sides that you don't get. That's the easy part, but just make sure you've got the bubbles and the wrinkles and stuff out of it. Try to press down as hard as you can. Miss just a little bit here up on top. I want to put just a little bit more, which I can still do. And like I said, don't worry if it smooshes out. You can always take some paper towel and get it, or you can let it go if it's just a little bit, because it does dry nicely. Okay, so now we have our S pretty well done. But we're not done with it yet, because as you can see, I took it down a little bit because I didn't like the idea of it being so dark and so whatever. I want it to look more like it's been loved, used. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to wait a little bit until this dries. Once we know that it's dried real good, we're going to take our sanding block after it. What we're going to do is sand the back a little bit, take down the darkness of it, sand the top, the sides, and the sanding is all whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. Let's take a piece of paper towel. Remember to always wipe what you've sanded, because there's still some wood sand residue on there. Not sand residue, wood residue on there, I should say. And now what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to just sand across here very lightly. I don't want to, if you sand too hard and you press too hard, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up taking the black right off. So you want to just lightly sand it. I went up and down a couple times. Take a look at it, see if that's what you like. If you want to do it more, you can do it more. What I like to do is get the edges of the paper so that they turn white. Now, once you get the edges of the paper, if you like how they turned out, you want to get them a little white on the side, you can turn around and take stain and actually stain the paper a little bit to make it really look like it's been worn and torn. Again, I want to get the corners. And I'm using the emery board because it's a little project and I have a lot more control over the emery board than I do a sheet of sandpaper like that. So I'm going to get the sides here because that's exactly what I want it to do. I want it to look worn. And going up this side yet. So I actually got a portion of the paper here that tore off, which I'm okay with. I don't mind that at all. I would let it dry first before I would go after it like that. But now what I think I might do with this is, let's take a little, it's got it on the top here too. You can either leave it alone, or you could actually take a little bit of the stain, and you could stain it and really make it look like it's been worn. And again, I'm going to go on the paper a little bit because, of course, I don't like the paper to have a lot of color to it. That's why I like the emery board, because I can get into some of these nook and crannies that I can't get into with. The other good thing about this is you can tear whatever to make it smaller if you need to. Wipe it off, and we are going to call it good. Here's our give thanks blocks.
Valley Telecommunications, the home team advantage.
Once that's been completed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the matte coating acrylic spray, and I am going to spray that down just so that this stays on the blocks, that the scrapbooking paper actually stays on the blocks real good. So be sure and have a well ventilated area. I'm going to go outside and actually spray this because it's nice outside right now, and I know that they're going to dry really good. So find a good ventilated area before you do this. Come back and see us again next month when we will be doing some Christmas projects. We'll see you then.